Hey fight fans, let's talk boxing. This sport's been around forever. Way before pay-per-view, even before the Romans. We're talking ancient times, thousands of years ago. Check this out. Archaeologists found this tablet in Baghdad. It's 7,000 years old. Shows two guys scrapping. That's how old boxing is. Over in Egypt, they were throwing punches back in the 3rd millennium BC. Got the drawings to prove it. Even those Greeks, famous for their Olympics, loved a good fight. They added boxing to the games in 688 BC. Now that's hardcore. Now let's talk about the Romans. They took boxing to a whole other level. They loved violence and spectacle. Boxing, right up their alley. They called their fighters pugilists, and they fought with these brutal things called cestus. Imagine leather straps wrapped around your hands, studded with metal spikes. Ouch! These weren't just fights, they were bloodbaths. The Romans built whole arenas for this stuff, places like the Colosseum. Thousands would pack in to watch gladiators and, yeah, boxers beat each other senseless. Brutal, but you gotta respect the history. After the Roman Empire fell, things got quiet for boxing. The Dark Ages weren't exactly known for their sporting events, but boxing didn't die. It was just waiting for its comeback. Fast forward to the 16th century. Boxing started popping up again in Europe. England became the new hotspot. They called it prize fighting back then. Guys would fight for money, sometimes just to survive. No gloves, no rules, just two guys in a circle throwing down. It was rough, it was raw, and it was starting to draw big crowds again. Boxing was back, baby. By the 18th century, boxing was gaining popularity, but it needed some rules. That's where James Figg comes in. He was a champion fighter, a real tough guy. Figg opened a boxing school in 1719 and started teaching what he called the sweet science of boxing. He introduced different punches and techniques. He wanted boxing to be more than just a brawl. Then came Jack Broughton, another legend. He was a champion fighter who also ran a boxing school. In 1743, he wrote down the first set of rules for boxing. They called them the Broughton's Rules. These rules helped make boxing safer and more organized. Section 5, gloves, rounds and weight classes, bringing order to the ring. The 19th century was when boxing really started to look like the sport we know today. We got gloves, rounds and weight classes. It was a game changer. In 1867, the Marquess of Queensberry published a new set of rules. These rules made boxing much safer. They required gloves, limited rounds to 3 minutes, and introduced weight classes. No more heavyweights pounding on smaller guys. These rules were a big deal. They helped legitimize boxing and made it more appealing to a wider audience. Boxing was becoming less of a street fight and more of a true sport. Section 6. Legends of the bare-knuckle era, champions and their stories. Even with the new rules, the bare-knuckle era of boxing was full of tough guys and legendary fights. These guys were warriors fighting for pride and money. One of the biggest names was John L. Sullivan. He was the last bare-knuckle heavyweight champion of the world. Sullivan was a brawler, a knockout artist. He was a true icon of his time. Then there was Gentleman Jim Corbett. He was a skilled boxer, known for his speed and technique. Corbett shocked the world when he knocked out Sullivan in 1892. It was the dawn of a new era in boxing. Section 7. The rise of modern boxing, from backrooms to big business. By the 20th century, boxing was a global phenomenon. Big fights were drawing huge crowds and making headlines around the world. It was big business. One of the first superstars of this era was Jack Dempsey. He was a knockout artist with a devastating left hook. Dempsey's fights were major events. Millions listened to them on the radio. Then came Joe Louis, the Brown Bomber. He was a dominant champion who held the heavyweight title for over 11 years. Louis became a symbol of hope and pride for many during the Great Depression. Section 8. Global domination, boxing's international rise to fame. Boxing wasn't just an American thing, it was huge all over the world. From Europe to Latin America, boxing produced champions and captivated audiences. Muhammad Ali, the greatest of all time, transcended boxing. He was a global icon known for his speed, his wit and his activism. Ali's fights were major international events. Then there's Manny Pacquiao from the Philippines. He's a legend, a multi-division champion who's inspired millions. And let's not forget Roberto Duran, the Hands of Stone from Panama. These guys showed the world that boxing was truly an international sport. Section 9. The Golden Age and Beyond. Boxing's unforgettable champions. The middle of the 20th century is often called the Golden Age of boxing. We had so many great fighters: Sugar Ray Robinson, Rocky Marciano, Jake LaMotta, too many to name. These guys were more than just boxers, they were cultural icons. Their fights were national events, they sold out stadiums and had everyone talking. They were the best of the best. Even today, boxing produces incredible athletes. Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, Canelo Alvarez, Tyson Fury, these guys are carrying the torch. They're proving that boxing is still one of the most exciting and demanding sports in the world. Section 10. Boxing today, a legacy of champions and challenges. Boxing has come a long way from those bare-knuckle brawls. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. But at its heart, it's still about two warriors squaring off in the ring. It's a sport that demands discipline, heart and courage. It's a sport that can lift you up or knock you down. But one thing's for sure, boxing always delivers a show. So next time you watch a fight, remember the history. Remember the warriors who paved the way. Boxing is more than just a sport. It's a test of human will and endurance, and that's something worth respecting.